I've come to the part in the show where I read you Ezekiel Kralen's installment of his story about the two dogs and all of the drama around them, and Deke, his friend, who takes advantage of him, and he lets him for some reason. I don't know why. I'm up to Christmas, apparently, in the story, and O. Henry Exmass Eve, only gay and a century later, by Ezekiel Kralen. Email posted December 26th. Subject, doggies seek comfort, and man builds canopy. 2 mornings ago, just after 7 a.m., Deke woke me up in his eagerness to pick up his fucking gadgets. No matter I was disturbed from a most restful sleep, like he couldn't wait another hour. He's always acting like he's in a hurry to go somewhere else just to make me jump at his bidding. But as you know, Watson, I allow him his transgressions up to a point for the sake of the pups, seeing as I am forbidden from providing them shelter in my hovel anymore, and I know it's a burden on him. Here's a video of that morning. Here's the caption. I'm constantly on Deke's back to take better care of his pups. Here is Lucky on the left, attempting to turn a stranded trash bag into a nest with no success, of course. His sister Flacco is resting on the filthy cold sidewalk. He was only there for a half hour, which was his excuse for not providing them some real cushy respite. Quote, I'm going to leave in a few minutes. How inconsiderate of him to refuse to perform the simple act of laying down that sleeping bag I gave him, which sagged uselessly in his shopping cart, or at least put some cardboard down for them. He has no excuse. Such lovely, sweet doggies deserve all the kindness and love in the world. Instead, they often suffer Deke's neglect. Jerry was there, too. You can see him seated in the upper right. Nice guy, handsome, with a sweet nature. Haven't seen him in quite a while, and I was glad to hear he's still living in the Henry Hotel, which is right along the Market Street edge in the Tenderloin. And here's a video from that evening. You can hear Marshall in the background as I was playing his podcast. Caption, with Deke and pups crashed out there beside the shopping cart, I watched this fellow who showed up later and formed a canopy over them. Turns out he knows Deke and joined him beneath the overhanging tarp for smokes and badinage. The doggies apparently know and like him as they remained snuggled in their blanket instead of barking up a hurricane. When I stepped out a bit later, seeing as Deke was obviously now awake, to tell him I took his electronics upstairs for safekeeping, I was impressed by the friendly ambiance, though I wished their bonding was over Mary Jane instead of that bitch Tina. Late afternoon, Xmas Eve, Deke called up to my window, said I could do him a big favor and give him $100 instead of $50, as he needs a new speaker because the one he has broke. And I could watch the pups for an hour. Well, okay, I replied, but you'll have to wait 10 days before your next payment. He says, that's fine. He won't bother me for moolah till then. Yeah, right, but he won't be getting any no matter the expected tantrums. So I handed him the envelope containing 2 Jacksons and 2 Lincolns that was already in my pocket, then marched off to my bank to make another withdrawal in the same amount. Upon returning, he informed me he probably won't be back till 6 p.m. What a skunk, pulling that on me. I looked at the clock in the bus stop stall to see it was 3:30 p.m., so I told him 2.5 hours then. Now get out of here so I can feed your dogs and make them comfy. His cart was piled high with new, clean clothes I think he collected from the Goodwill bulk bins somewhere south of Market, as he mentioned that place about a week ago. He only discovered it then. He instructed me to just use the sleeping bag for the pups, but leave the clothing in the cart. I said, sure, and he left. Soon as he did, I set down the sleeping bag and then covered them with 3 jackets, 2 red, 1 orange, that were among the items he forbade me to touch. After all, the sleeping bag alone was not sufficient for both mutts. Once they bunched it up into a nest, just look how the cart in this photo is ridiculously stuffed with fresh apparel, and you tell me he can't spare some for his best friends. I fed and watered the dogs, and had a most pleasant visit with my Brindlekin cuddled beside me, Lucky's warm, solid head beneath my left hand, and Flacco's more tapered, smaller noggin resting on my lap. I occupied my time watching scary videos on my backup smartphone, and an hour or so later some amiable lady in her mid-40s approached me, said, "Can you use this flashlight and some batteries, dear?" I looked up, smiled, and replied, "Sure, thank you." I didn't really need it, but sometimes it's more gracious to allow someone an act of kindness than to thwart them. It's an act of goodwill itself. As she leaned down to hand me a small orange flashlight and a packet of 4 AAA batteries, the hounds raised their heads to take a gander. They did not bark, but were curious to see if a snack were being offered, no doubt. "Oh, what cute little doggies," she gushed. "What are they, dachshunds?" I explained. "Yes, half dachshund, half terrier." "Are they related?" she queried. "Yes, same parents, different litters, 1 year apart," I replied. "This is Flacco, and this is her brother, Lucky." I then explained that I'm not homeless. I live right there, but I have a homeless friend, and these are his dogs. I sometimes watch over them so he can run an errand or two. I even write true stories about my friend and his pups. With that, I rummaged through my backpack till I found a small baggie containing a dozen of my Brindlekin prayer cards and handed her one. They're free to read online, and you'll also find my YouTube channel in the sidebar with lots of videos of the hounds and their master. She took the card, glanced at the subtitle, and chuckled, "True Tales of the Castro. Eat your heart out, Armistead. I love it." "I'm glad you caught that," I remarked. So meeting her was a sweet moment, Watson, though otherwise I was left alone with the dogs. Maybe we'll meet again somewhere down the line soon. I sure hope so. The day had turned dark by the time she departed. I took the moment then to bring some jerky treats down to the doggies, of which I still have plenty. So cute watching them chomp down on the tough bits, lips smacking and muscles puffed out slightly as they chewed, then gazing up at me with delight, honey-brown eyes a-sparkle, eager for the next piece. I did this about a dozen times before telling them, "That's all now. Sorry." Well, Lucky accepted this in blithe resignation and laid his head back down. Flacco started to look about the ground in desperate glances, wondering if a missed scrap or two could be found here or there on the ground or hidden somewhere on my person. After much sniffing about and my holding the now empty baggie open for her to stick her snout in and discover all gone, she finally dropped her head upon my thigh and fell fast asleep once more. Just minutes after 6 p.m., I rushed back hovel to replenish the water bowl, and upon stepping out, there was Deke in a snit over my putting those verboten jackets on the canines. No thank you, no appreciation whatsoever for my taking such good care of his charges, or giving him $100, or trusting him to return on time. "Too bad, Deke," I retorted, "but you have tons of clothes here, and Flacco and Lucky deserve the comfort. The clothes didn't get dirty. I just tossed them over the dogs. They are more important than your clothes, your music, your devices, or anything else, and that's that." He continued to gripe further, though. I must admit he did not scream, and he did show up by 6 p.m. as he promised, returning with a spanking new speaker of a solid weight and good quality. I firmly and angrily told him he has no right to start arguments right outside this building, and he'd better snap out of it or I'll call the cops and drive him away. I came right up to his face when I scorched him. "Enough is enough. I'm bringing your stuff down now," I huffed, "and you should leave then." He was totally calm by the time I returned and handed him his devices, which included a hefty portable charger the size of a brick, and would juice up his devices many times before needing to drop it off again. For him, that means freedom from Zeke's admonishments, at least for longer spells, assuming, of course, he doesn't lose it or trade it off in a few days, as is his usual pattern. I was ready to return upstairs, but stood around another minute to watch Deke sort through his cart. To my disgust, he moved the cart abruptly, forcing the pups to jump away until they saw they could settle down again. But by then the sleeping bag was caught up in a wheel, so the pooches had a little space for their nest. Their master didn't even bother to look their way. So I rearranged the bag so they could lie down again, only this time without those jackets that Deke snatched away because, as he said, while himself clothed in a heavy pea coat and a fisherman's watch cap, it's not that cold outside. So the wee canines had to bunch up close in order to avoid the chill concrete, one of the many incidents that instill in me a strong urge to punch his lights out. I then retrieved the 2 cardboard sheets I had sat upon earlier from beside the nearby trash bin and laid them out for the dogs, then placed half the sleeping bag down so they could rest upon that and still have almost half to keep them barely covered. It was a tight arrangement, thanks to Deke's selfish refusal to share some of his new clothing, all of which he got for pennies on the dollar. At least they had their sweaters on. I suppose when he visits the Goodwill bulk bins, when sorting through them, he never thinks, oh, the doggies will like this, or oh, they'll love that. Instead, it's, oh, I can wear this, and oh, that'll look good on me. He now has access to all these dirt-cheap garments and other cloth items, so I would never need to buy them sleeping bags or blankets again, yet the stubborn fool locks me into a situation where I still have to spend what little money I have for the dog's protection. And I know if I bring that up, he'll abruptly cut me off before I get one sentence out. What a fucktwit. I could go visit the bargain bins myself and see what's what. I think I will, bypass the nasty Cajun troll at the bridge, so to speak. Deke soon settled down beside his cart and dozed off, by which time Flacco had scrambled onto his lap, and he wrapped his arms around her. He often sleeps sitting up with his torso bent way forward and head almost at waist level, typical posture for speed freaks in repose. Lucky wasn't about to stir from his cozy warm spot, fully enclosed in that sleeping bag, thank you very much. It was about an hour later when that fellow appeared who provided the makeshift canopy. And some 20 minutes beyond that, when 3 others arrived, Boulevard Joe among them, and one young lady who I've never seen before. By then it was just after midnight, so I decided to bring Deke's electronics back downstairs, since after I saw him suddenly zonk out earlier, I realized his gadgets could be stolen, and took them hovel. It was a sociable group, and the doggies enjoyed their rest undisturbed. The Exmass Eve gathering broke up around 1:30 a.m., and some minutes later I heard Deke call out, "Flacco, come here, Flacco." I peered out the window to see her a couple trees up the block, sniffing at the base, upon which she peed, took a little poop, then happily pranced back in his direction, her floppy Yoda ears bouncing, but she passed right by her master and continued her walk in the opposite direction, until she reached another tree right by the bus stop and took one more doggy dump, after which she finally returned to Deke's lap and into his embrace. Deke never bothers to clean up after the pups, which doesn't help his relationship with the locals any, just another item on his long list of things he does wrong. So I decided to do it myself and stepped out with a doggy bag in hand. When I exited through the front gate, Deke looked up at me, and I said, "Just going to pick up the poopies," which I did for both trees, then wished him a good night and Merry Christmas before I disappeared back into my building. They were all gone a short while later. Only those 2 sheets of cardboard remained.